Hey scumbags, it's May. Happy Star Wars month. Even though it's the end of May, it still counts as Star Wars month. Whatever, don't at me. It's me, your lovable old hairy rascal Andrew Fantasia here with another episode of Good Will Hunting for you guys because you're our Patreon homies and we love you to pieces. Thanks for being our Patreon homies. We really appreciate it. Today on Good Will Hunting, I want to talk about a particular subject that I've been meaning to go over for a while because I think it's one of the coolest, most interesting, and most possibility-full aspect of new canon. And that is a little something called the Inquisitorius. Yeah, the Jedi are cool, the bounty hunters are cool, the Sith are cool, but there's also the Inquisitorius who are neither of those things, or at least were once Jedi. I don't know, it's complicated. But the Inquisitors are a genius idea when it comes to new Star Wars canon. They're brilliant, and they're brilliant for this particular reason. You want to create content. You want to make books and novels. They're the same thing, Andrew. You want to make books and comics and video games and things like that. And you know people love seeing lightsaber duels happen, but there's a problem there, because you can have some new character like Kanan Jarrus or Cal Kestis, and you can have them get in a bunch of lightsaber duels with Darth Vader because he's the only bad lightsaber wielding dude around. But Darth Vader is going to take their asses to school because he's Darth Vader. So how do you get around this? Inquisitors, baby. It's such a brilliant concept. You get these characters who were once Jedi, but faltered somewhere down the line. And now you have these characters who are all villains, who are all force-wielding, lightsaber-fighting villains, and you can send them to any corner of the galaxy you want to deal with whoever you want. You can send them after Ahsoka, you can send them after Cal Kestis, you can send them after people in other video games and comics, because it makes sense. They're not going to be outmatched. They're not going to be a little mouse putting on boxing gloves and trying to take on Mike Tyson, because Darth Vader should be untouchable. He should be untouchable to anybody but Leia and Luke Skywalker, because they've got what it takes to bring him down. So the Inquisitors, I think they are a necessity in these new times of Star Wars that we find ourselves in. That's why I find them so intriguing, and that's why today on Good Will Hunting, I want to go over all of the Inquisitors we have met so far. Check in on their status. Are they still alive? Are they dead? Have they moved on to greener pastures? And then I want to talk about the Inquisitors we haven't met yet, because we know, thanks to a very specific naming system, that they exist somewhere out there in the galaxy. So without further ado, put on your really spooky black helmets, get your spinning lightsaber ready, and get ready to ask some questions, because we're about to get inquisitive. Let's start with the ladies first, why not? And we'll go in numerical order. So we'll begin with the second sister, aka her real name, Trilla Siduri. Trilla was a Jedi Padawan. She was a Padawan of Seer Junda when the shit hit the fan, and she was tortured by the Empire, etc., etc. And next thing you know, she comes out as an Inquisitor. She's one of the rare cases where it seems like she was not willingly surrendering, but the Empire got to her anyway. Which, when you think about it, makes the Inquisitorius a whole lot scarier. Personally, I think the second sister is the coolest looking Inquisitor. She's got the cape, she's got the great helmet, she makes an imposing silhouette, she's just an all-around cool looking villain, and in my opinion, one of the best Black Series toys Hasbro has ever put out. She's also a formidable opponent in the video game. I had a hell of a time trying to beat her, but in the end, she was defeated by Cal Kestis and Seer Junda, and finally murdered by Darth Vader himself. R.I.P. Trilla. Next, we've got the seventh sister, who we meet in Star Wars Rebels. Voiced by Sarah Michelle Gellar, the Vampire Slayer herself, the seventh sister teams up with another Inquisitor, the fifth brother, to hunt down the Ghost Crew. She is constantly trying to tail Ezra Bridger and Kanan Jarrus and all their homies, and they get pretty close to cutting them down a few times. The seventh sister is scary because she's got these little droid pets that she sends out, and they run around clamping down on things and recording things. She's a very crafty woman, and she knows how to get what she wants. She seems like the most sadistic Inquisitor that we have met thus far. She meets her end in the temple underneath Malachor when Darth Maul throws his lightsaber at her and cuts her in half. Usually that doesn't tend to stop people like Darth Maul, but I guess the seventh sister got cut in all the wrong places. R.I.P. Next is what might be my favorite Inquisitor of the bunch, the ninth sister, aka Masana Tide. She is a Dowutin, which is the same species as this guy from The Force Awakens. So she's a big, hulking beast who makes a very imposing threat. She's also the secondary antagonist of Jedi Fallen Order, so as Cal Kestis, you will cross paths and blades with her a couple of times. She's seen in the Marvel comics following around Darth Vader on plenty of missions, and what I like about her is in these comics, even though she understands that Darth Vader is a psychopath who will kill anyone who looks at him the wrong way, she is braver than most other people are around Darth Vader. The Ninth Sister ain't afraid to tell Vader what's what. Last time we see the Ninth Sister, she is fighting Cal Kestis high on a treetop in Kashyyyk when Cal kicks her off of the Rocher tree and she goes plummeting, apparently, to her demise. I don't know. Personally, I don't think we have seen the last of the Ninth Sister. She's just too cool a character. But if she has to go, I guess there's worse ways to go in Star Wars. R.I.P.? Next, also from the comics, is a sister whose number we don't learn. All we know is that she is a Paladuvan, and she is teamed up with a brother, whose number we also don't learn, who happens to be a Twi'lek. And the two of them have a crisis of conscience and decide to betray the Empire in the Inquisitorius, sabotage Darth Vader, and run away. They get pretty close to escaping out into the Coruscant night, but after a frenzied chase through the traffic, Darth Vader catches up to them and murders them because, of course, he does. That's what Darth Vader does on a Thursday. We never learn anything about the Paladuvan sister and Twi'lek brother, their names, their numbers, anything. All we know is that they were a part of the Inquisitorius during the era when the Inquisitorius were at their strongest, and they were, as far as we know, the only ones who tried to leave it all behind. I think that this irregularity makes them very, very intriguing, and I hope we learn more about them in the future. Unfortunately, they don't have a future themselves, so it would have to be through some kind of backstory or flashback. R.I.P. times 2. For the final sister, we have to venture out of the realm of books, comics, TV shows, temporary tattoos, video games, and the like, and jump into the pen and paper Star Wars role-playing game put out by Fantasy Flight Games, particularly a Force and Destiny RPG module called Ghosts of Dathomir. In Ghosts of Dathomir, there is an unidentified female Inquisitor who encounters a young Dathomirian woman named Jer'Sera, who was part of a sect of the Night Sisters. The Inquisitor decides to take Jer'Sera as a secret apprentice and spends years training her in lightsaber combat and the like. It was the hope of this unidentified sister to use Jer'Sera as a weapon against the other Inquisitors to wipe them out. Of course, as tends to happen with the dark side of the Force, Jer'Sera became more and more powerful until she decided she no longer needed her master, and she killed the female Inquisitor who trained her and took her lightsaber for her own. So now we have this lady named Jer'Sera running around Dathomir with lightsaber training and an Inquisitor's lightsaber she stole off the body of her master, and we have no idea what happens next. Jer'Sera is out there somewhere, but the female Inquisitor, who's the real focus of this, is now 6 feet under the Dathomirian soil. R.I.P. Time to move on to the brothers, starting numerically once again with the fifth brother, who's the big hulking brute that we meet in Star Wars Rebels. The fifth brother was paired up with the seventh sister, chasing down Ezra Bridger and the crew of the Ghost across the galaxy as they committed a bunch of rebel atrocities in the name of justice, because the Empire sucks. Eventually, the fifth brother and seventh sister found their way to the underworld on Malachor, where they engaged in a huge lightsaber battle that spanned up and down the steps of a great old Sith pyramid. During the battle, Ahsoka Tano and Darth Maul put aside their differences for a minute, teamed up, and killed the fifth brother. Tano destroyed his lightsaber, and Maul finished him off. R.I.P. Next is the sixth brother, and we finally know another character's name. His name is Bill Valen. Yes, let's all take a moment to appreciate the fact that there is now a Star Wars character named Bill. Bill Valen is one of the main batch of Inquisitors that we first meet in the Darth Vader Dark Lord of the Sith comic run, and he hops around with Vader and the others on numerous adventures, particularly an interesting one where he joins the ninth sister and the 10th brother on a mission to Mon Cala. While on Mon Cala, the Inquisitors have the clones turned against them and almost get cut down in the crossfire. Bill Valen escapes by slashing at the ninth sister's leg to keep the clones distracted. He runs for cover and disappears. I guess he kind of betrays them. He doesn't want to show his face, so he just kind of leaves for a while. Afterwards, we catch up with him searching for a possible Force-sensitive child on the planet Thebeska, but then he abandons that task when he hears word that somebody who has received Jedi training might be hiding out in the Outer Rim, and that person turns out to be Ahsoka Tano. In the E.K. Johnston Ahsoka book, the sixth brother catches up with Ahsoka Tano on the moon of Rada, and they have a crazy awesome duel. Ahsoka Tano puts an end to the sixth brother by causing the kyber crystal in his lightsaber to explode, killing him in the process. R.I.P. Next is the eighth brother. We don't ever really learn too much about this guy, but the eighth brother is just a run-of-the-mill Inquisitor who does his best and ends up coming up short because the dark side, baby. The eighth brother is introduced to us in the comics, and then we don't really see him again for a long, long while until the battle on Malachor at the end of Star Wars Rebels Season 2. During this duel, the eighth brother's lightsaber is damaged by Kanan Jarrus. Feeling himself outnumbered, he tries to escape the pyramid by jumping off and using his lightsaber to hover away, which is a very cool thing the Inquisitors like to do. Unfortunately, Kanan's damage was a bit more extensive than he thought. The lightsaber malfunctioned mid-flight, and the eighth brother was sent plummeting to his demise at the base of the pyramid. R.I.P. Next is the 10th brother, aka Prosit Dibs. Speaking of Kanan Jarrus, this is another blind Jedi. Prosit Dibs was blind for a while, though. As far as we know, he always has been blind. And we first meet him in the underrated comic tale, Mace Windu, Jedi of the Republic, where he is part of a task force sent to join Mace Windu on a mission that ends up going horribly wrong. It's during this mission that Prosit Dibs loses his faith in the Jedi Order. And unfortunately, unlike Luke Skywalker, who lost his faith and decided to try to rebuild things in a bigger and better way, Prosit Dibs became jaded and angry and was imprisoned and just kind of gave in to the dark side, to the point where once Vader took out all the Jedi in the temple, he was freed and he immediately bowed to the new Sith Order and said he'd be more than happy to help them in their dark, nefarious dealings. Thus, he became one of the first Inquisitors. As the 10th brother, Prosit Dibs joined Vader and the rest of the gang on all sorts of missions across the galaxy, hunting down young Force wielders and killing Jedi before they can be Jedi. Eventually, he ends up alongside the 6th brother and the 9th sister, following Vader on his mission to the planet Mon Cala. It's there in the sewers of a Mon Calamari city where the 10th brother is defeated by the clones who are activated by the rogue Jedi they've been hunting. The clones shoot down the Inquisitors because they used to be Jedi, and Prosit Dibs, the 10th brother, falls in battle, shot down by a whole bunch of clones. R.I.P. Finally, there was an unnamed and unnumbered brother who was sent by the Empire to hunt down a small group of Jedi who had been discovered hiding out on Anowat. The Inquisitor killed 2 of the 4 Jedi. The other 2 fled to the planet Burnin Khan, but eventually the Inquisitor tracked them down there and killed them as well. We don't know what happened to this Inquisitor, who he was, what he was, or where he ended up. For all we know, he's still out there. Ooh. This all happened in Star Wars Uprising, though, so at the end of the day, does anybody really care? Then finally, there was the Grand Inquisitor himself. We never learn his name, but he was a Pauan male who trained at the Jedi Temple. He wasn't the greatest Jedi, but he wasn't the worst either. He became a member of the Jedi Temple Guard. He was even one of the guards who brought Barriss Offee before Supreme Chancellor Palpatine during the trial in which Ahsoka Tano was wrongfully accused of committing all kinds of nasty acts. It seems even back then, the other Jedi were not too fond of this guy and they knew something was up with him because Jocasta Nu didn't like him snooping around her library. They had a bit of an issue together. And once he fell to the dark side, one of the first things the Grand Inquisitor wanted to do was read all of the books he had been denied as a Jedi. Happily falling into his new role, he served Darth Vader and helped train the Inquisitorius to hunt down the other children of the Force. And he seemed pretty good at his job until he had to hunt down the Spectres. And once he got involved in the Spectres, it was the beginning of the end for the Grand Inquisitor. He had his final confrontation with Kanan Jarrus and Ezra Bridger aboard the Sovereign. During a duel, Kanan destroyed his lightsaber, cutting it in half, and the 2 halves of the lightsaber hit the Genitor, causing it to catch fire. And it started a big chain reaction, and the ship started to blow up, because that's what happens to Star Wars ships. But the Inquisitor just calmly looked up at Kanan Jarrus and said to him, "You have no idea what you've unleashed here today. There are some things far more frightening than death." At which point, he let go of the unsafe railing he was clinging to and fell to his death into the explosion. The Grand Inquisitor is interesting because normally we meet the pawns before we meet the bigger pieces on the chessboard. In this case, we met the Grand Inquisitor before meeting all of his subordinates, and he got offed pretty quickly. So what I'd like to know is there a new Grand Inquisitor who stepped into the role once he was killed? And if so, have we met them yet? And speaking of Inquisitors we haven't met, that leads to the obvious question. We've met the 2nd sister, the 7th sister, and the 9th sister, as well as 2 sisters whose numbers we don't know. So where are the 1st, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, and 8th sisters? Same with the brothers. We met 5th, 6th, 8th, and 10th, as well as the Twi'lek brother and the one from Uprising, whose numbers we never learned. So what happened to 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 7th and 9th? Will we ever meet them again? Well, there's plenty of Star Wars content, more games, more comics coming out. So as far as I'm concerned, it's only a matter of time. And that's it, folks. That's the skinny on all the Inquisitors we have met thus far in Star Wars canon. And it's a bunch. And I love that they're so spread out in all these different corners of canon. At this point, we've pretty much seen them in everything except a movie. And I think it's only a matter of time before that changes. So thanks for tuning into this episode of Good Will Hunting. And remember, never stop asking questions, because inquisitiveness gets you really far in the age of the new galactic empire. I'm Andrew Fantasia. Thanks for watching, scumbags. We'll see you again next month on Good Will Hunting. Until then, may the force of others be with you.